Hey guys, today I want to talk about retirement and what most people miss the mark on when it comes to retirement. When I was younger, I often looked forward to retirement in my 20s. I planned really heavy duty because I really wanted to retire probably like in my 30s or 40s if I could. And I was putting a ton of money away into like tech stocks, things like that. And then the tech stocks fell, it had a lot of issues, things like that. And then you go through divorces and you lose half your money through a divorce or 70%, and then plus all the legal fees associated with that. It's part of the problem with retirement throughout life is that the government lets a lot of your retirement stuff disappear in divorces and stuff, when whoever works for their retirement should be able to keep their retirement. It just should be the way things are. Let's face it, most couples today, both of them work. And if the woman works, that should be her retirement. If the man works, the man should be entitled to that retirement. If you have children and stuff like that, I can see where more money should pass to the other side. The husband should have to pay for the kids to be raised and go to college or whatever. I understand that. I get that. And even with the college part, in all honesty, I believe that if a kid wants to go to college, he should be the one who takes out the loans and not the parents. Because they're of the age then that they can take out loans or whatever. That's just something I believe, and I know a lot of people disagree with me with that, and they think that the parents should pay or whatever because they're the ones that had them or whatever. And I understand both sides. I really do. But here's the big thing about retirement that most people miss is that as we go through lives, and this is something I've noticed from sitting over here looking back on my life, is that during my life, a lot of times I was working 60 or 80 hours a week. I didn't have time for my family because I was working, I was hustling, I was trying to put money away for retirement. And that's rough. It's rough on the family. And you don't realize how rough it is on the family. You're trying to support your family so that you can do weekend stuff, vacations, things like that, when sometimes the best times probably should have been stayed at home and just enjoyed at home, or local place going fishing with your kids or whatever. A lot of that I was able to do, fortunately. I was able to take my kids on weekend trips and things like that, but sometimes it was kind of costly. I was lucky in that I was blessed with a lot of income because I had an eBay business at the time. But as you go through these good times, all of a sudden a bad time hits and it takes away your money again, and you have to start all over again and start earning to save for your retirement again, because you lose some of that. And although I had money going into my municipal retirement, and a lot of money going into my municipal retirement, I didn't retire with a great amount of money. But if I had retired the way I wanted, I probably would have been retiring on about between $7,000 to $9,000 per month. That's what I would have been retired on. But because of divorces, because of things that happen or whatever, you need to take some money out, or emergency comes across to you and your family, and then that burns some money right there. Although I didn't have too many of those, the divorces are what pretty much wiped me out. And it does that with a lot of guys, let's face it. And especially as you get older, I went through a divorce about 5 years before my retirement age. Okay, and that killed me. It killed me a lot because I had a lot of money, both in her name and trusts and stuff to protect her. God forbid I died. It ended up trusting her. It ended up helping her when she wanted to go through the divorce because it was all protected. So it kind of helped her a little bit, and she ended up getting, a home down in South Carolina. She ended up getting some silver that was put aside. All that stuff she ended up with. She ended up getting it. And all's fair in love and war, I guess. But these are the things that play into our retirements. And I'll tell you this, that as I get older though, and I look back a lot, because you have the time over here to look back, I notice that the free time is what means the most. Having that time is good as long as you keep active and you do things with your family. My family over here means the world to me, and it really does. And I got this guy right here with me too, and he's part of the family too. He's kind of a pain sometimes. He's an affection nut. He always wants affection. And look at that face. It's a face only a mother could love. But, Daddy loves him too, right? Right, Watson? Huh. He's like Snoopy, Look at him. He always wants attention. But anyway, one of the things I want to say is this, is that when you consider your retirement, make sure you have that retirement locked down and you're really watching it and you're taking care of it, and try to make it so that nobody can touch it if you can. Talk to an attorney, and when for you guys over in the States, you really miss out on quality time and free time for yourself. And that's why I say retire early if you can. I know a lot of guys that watch this channel, they're older. Retire as quick as you can and figure out what you're going to be living on and if you can live on it. But retiring early has its benefits if you can do it. And I'm kind of blessed over here because I have this channel and I pay into Social Security and I pay my taxes over here. They still take money out for Social Security back home, but I pay my taxes over here in the Philippines too. And they don't take out a lot, but it's enough, But I'm blessed that does go into my Social Security, so I still have that continuing. But anyway, the thing about over here is this: once you're over here, you have plenty of time to plan things and do things and try to cut back a little bit. And a lot of guys over here, they start finding that their money goes a long ways over here, and it really does. I can't say how much right now. With the current exchange rates, we do very well over here. But when it's bad, we kind of have to suck in our stomach and slow down a little bit and say, all right, we got to slow down the spending now because all this stuff's going on, and we have to. During these good times, you should be putting money aside too. But looking back, and hindsight's 2020, looking back on my life, I kind of wish sometimes that I spent more time with my family than I did saving, but I also planned more for my retirement during that time. I probably wouldn't have had to save as much as I did and then have it taken away if I had put it into things that couldn't be touched, maybe trusts or something like that. And that would have been a way to protect yourself. And I implore people, sit down and talk with an attorney if you are married or you're not married, and see how you can put this money into trusts or whatever, or anything you can do to protect yourself from divorces or other people, because you know what? That's going to kill your kill your retirement later on. And it's going to save you through the divorces or whatever in some of these cases if you can protect those assets. Make sure your wife's assets are protected. There's ways of doing things. And sitting down talking with an attorney is one of the best ways to do it, even though it's expensive. My ex-wife, she was protected. I had things that were taken away from me through divorces that shouldn't have been touched. Money that was left over from my father, passed over from an estate from my father that was, was touched. Unfortunately, people were trying to grab everything that they could. You need to protect your assets, whether they're coming from an estate, whether it's coming from retirement plans or whatever. You need to make sure you plan this stuff. And sometimes it means a prenuptial. To you guys over there in the United States, a lot of you guys think that you're going to be married to the same woman forever. It usually doesn't end up that way. Usually 70% of the women, they're the ones that file for divorce. They usually get anywhere between 50 to 70% of the money, because some of the guys just throw in the towel and say, okay, I don't want to pay all these legal fees and stuff like that. So they throw in the towel and they give her the 60, 70, or even 80% sometimes of all the assets in the house, in the house and the money and all that stuff, because they figure, well, she's got the kids or whatever. Don't be dumb, because you know what? She's still going to get money from you from alimony or whatever. A lot of people, they're not really thinking when they're going through life because they're too busy with work. They don't want to spend all the time thinking about all this stuff out. They don't want to spend the time, and they don't want to spend that energy on that negative stuff, because it's a negative thing that you're going through. And that's what's going to kill your retirement. Because I remember when, as I got older and I went through my last divorce, I was like, wow, now I got to work 5 years and work 2 jobs up until I retire at 55 in order to play catch up. Catch up's hard. It takes a lot out of your health, and you don't really have a life much. I didn't have much time to myself. The only time I had was really when I was working on weekends, and it was because I took a security job where I sat in a car on weekends. I walked around the parking lot. I was kind of like a mall security guard, I guess, and drove around in a car, and that's what I did. And it wasn't fun work, but at least I got to have time to myself, sit back, relax, do things that I wanted to do. I could still chill a little bit, even though I wasn't home. Friends would come by, stop by, and say hello to me or whatever once in a while. It was kind of a nice thing to have a job like that. But a lot of people, they're working an extra 20 hours in their regular job, trying to catch up and get ahead, and then they get nailed with taxes and stuff like that. You really need to plan on IRAs and Roths and all that stuff, and protect the hell out of that stuff with prenuptials and things like that if you're married, or even a postnuptial. If you and your wife are pretty relatively well off, sometimes a postnuptial is okay. You can both agree, hey, listen, if we ever go through a divorce, I want to make sure that this goes to you and this goes to me, and let's plan this out now just in case it ever does happen. And things like that do happen, unfortunately. And a postnuptial is a lot harder to do than a prenuptial, let's face it. A prenuptial, if you ask your wife, or your future wife, I should say, if she's willing to sign it, a lot of times they'll say no. At least then you know where you stand. You hate to talk about this stuff, but it's something that we all have to think about as adults. You do not want to lose your retirement in life. I've lost my retirement several times because of this. I was able to catch up. Going through divorce is one of the biggest causes of losing your retirement. It's one of the biggest. Let's face it. It just is. And as we age and you get closer, you look back and you say, man, I lost 100,000 here, 150,000 here going through this divorce. Think of what you would have had if you still had that today, what you would have for retirement. You'd be very well off, just as would I. And you really, really need to think about these things for sure, 100%, because if you don't, you won't be over here. You'll be back there working. And there's a lot of laws back home that they're talking about changing with Medicare. They're talking about raising the Medicare age, by the way, from 65 to 67. And they're talking about raising the retirement age to possibly 70 now from 67 for some people. That's because of the way Social Security is right now. It's a mess because the government has borrowed from it and they never paid it back. And remember, it used to be during the Reagan years, Social Security was totally flush. It had all kinds of money until they started dipping their hands in and borrowing it. There was actually an over amount in there. And they looked at that and they said, well, geez, we can borrow from that. And now look at the mess that they've caused, because that should have been left alone. And we would have been able to retire better with that overage, because that was our money in the first place. Social Security might not be there in the future. You guys also need to plan for that. That's where IRAs, Roths, all that stuff comes in, 401ks, 403bs, all that stuff comes into play. If you guys don't plan early, it's not going to be there later. If you guys don't plan on divorces in your life, that money's not going to be there later. You're going to be retiring on less. A lot of the guys that I've talked to over here have gone through a lot of divorces, a lot of issues and stuff in their past, and they were telling me that they could have retired on $5,000, or they could have retired on $7,000, or $3,500, or $2,500, but now they're only on $1,500. You know why? Divorce. So that, and part of it is not just divorce; it's lack of planning. And granted, I worked hard in my last 5 years. You don't want to play catch up in the last 5 years before you retire, especially if you're in your 60s or 50s like me. Remember, I was 50. I had to work from 50 to 55, all kinds of hours. And you're kind of older. You kind of get tired earlier. I paid for that in my health a lot, and you would too. And some of you guys coming over here, you will have to play a catch-up game, possibly work a security job and still work your regular job, or work overtime at your regular job or whatever to come over here. And it's worth it to do that, because it's great to have that excess money. Anyway, guys, I just want to chat about that today. God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show.